Twice a day I sit in the third car from the front where I have the perfect view into my favorite house.
The Girl on the Train is very much about the women for me. It's about these three women, Megan, Rachel and Anna. It's about the judgments that women make about each other, about the way they see each other, about how they sometimes internalize society's judgments and they can be quite harsh on each other. And then we see these three different perspectives and we see these women's perceptions starting to shift and they start to break down those original judgments that they made.
Paula wrote a great story, great characters, a great thriller. The adaptation of the book, The Girl on the Train, into the screenplay was particularly challenging because the book employs the kind of literary devices that don't easily adapt into cinematic experience.
The novel, The Girl on the Train, is told from three different women's points of view, chapter by chapter. The question was, were we going to make a sort of disjointed but very exciting movie with three different points of view, or was I going to streamline it into one point of view, that being Rachel's? And that's what I did on the first draft. After that, I worked really hard on lacing in the two other women. I very much wanted to have the other 2 points of view.
One of the great challenges that Aaron was confronted with was, how do I take what is inside someone's mind and thinking and dramatically articulate it with a visual grammar that allows us to have the same experience, albeit in a different medium.
She's throwing it all away. She's gonna cause so much pain.
Adapting The Girl on the Train into a screenplay was not so much about reinventing it as finding the truth of how to really keep the integrity of the book in the screenplay. The book is all about somebody's inner monologue. It's a very intense, very personal story about longing.
She's what I lost. She's everything I want to be.
I needed to bring that inner monologue to the screen visually, and that was one of the most exciting things about adapting Paula Hawkins' book.
I was thrilled to hear that Emily Blunt was playing Rachel. Rachel is rather tragic. Her ex-husband has remarried and has started a family, and Rachel has become an alcoholic. I really wanted to write about this person who has this addiction problem and it affects her memories. Her memory loss is sort of key to her sense of who she's become. She has a kind of twisted sense of guilt and responsibility because she doesn't remember her actions, and she's uniquely unreliable and vulnerable and easy to manipulate.
We find a woman who is really confused, and to me the core of the film is in the line, I'm afraid of myself.
So much of the film is about peeling back the layers on three very complicated, very complex female characters. Why they're vulnerable to certain men, why they go on certain paths, what they feel about themselves, and that's a credit both to the adaptation that Aaron undertook and the film itself.
I do feel it is a woman's movie in that it represents a sort of craziness in women and a lunacy and a desperation and then a kind of a redemption that is very feminine. The male characters have a very different form of rage in the film, and that's kind of what I love about what Tate brought to it, the testosterone.
I think his vision for the film is quite similar to my vision for the book. We talked about him keeping the sort of paranoid, claustrophobic atmosphere.
As far as the author, Paula Hawkins, goes, she's great. I knew she was my kind of girl when our first meeting was at the Claridge's over a couple gin and tonics. At 2 in the afternoon, I think it was. In our first meeting, I asked her would she had any requests. She said, just make it great and make it truthful. And she sent me off with very, very few conditions, which was great.
Every day I tell myself not to look, but then I look.
The Girl on the Train is a moving rear window. It's about a woman who's on a train watching the world go on without her. And finally she steps off the train and she enters the world and she enters her life and she finds herself and she becomes a player in her own life.
Today I sit in a different car and I look ahead because I am not the girl I used to be.